Namaste, everyone, and welcome to the Ask and Grow webinar. I am Suyash, and I head the brand communication for And Academy. I'm very happy that you've decided to spend the next hour with us. At And Academy, our motto is to make design education accessible, affordable, and industry relevant. And to this end, we present a webinar with Shiva Viswanathan, who is an industry leader in UX. With over 30 years of experience being a designpreneur, Shiva truly is a rock star of UX. He founded Apparatus Media Lab, a brand and user experience studio, and is currently the co-founder of Catenate as well as the design head at Ogilvy Pennywise and director at Design Lab. This is just a short introduction to Shiva. If any of you really want to dig in, you can go to his LinkedIn profile. He has extensive work. I mean, that 30 years of experience is truly there. Joining him, we have Naman Singh, a young UX professional and an alumni of IIAD. Naman is a product experience designer at Red. He likes to be at the crossroads of design for people and the planet. And he has garnered experience in the healthcare education industry by creating SaaS products and direct to consumer apps. He's also a strong advocate of veganism and minimalism. Without any further ado, Shiva, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Suyash. We are going to actually walk you through a set of things today. One is I'm going to broadly talk about what user experience really means. I'm going to hand over to Naman, who will walk you through a case study and a project that he's worked on. So you guys get to know what are the skill sets that's called for and what is demanded of you when you actually finish the course and join in a job. And then we will actually talk about the course itself briefly, and then I'll open it for Q&A. Of course, we are going to talk about placements and what happens in placement a little, and we'll open for Q&A so that you guys can ask questions to all of us. So to start with, user experience is about people using technology. Earlier, it was not. It's people using anything, but now it's very precise. So it's about people using technology. When you use a personal computer to write a poem, somebody designed the screen where you actually are writing a poem. If you want to actually put the cursor in place, you want to go back, click on something and delete it, it's been thought through before by designers so that you can do it so easily. The same way, if you go to the internet to find a recipe for a cake or book a ticket, all those pieces have been thought through by somebody so that the right thing is in the right place so that you can discover stuff very easily. And so is using your phone to reach the nearest pharmacy or your smart watches that you wear these days to kind of track your fitness, or they are all governed user experience. So you can imagine the amount of user experience governed products that exist in our world, and you can imagine the need for the kind of designers who got to work on. Next slide, please. User experience is largely about making those products approachable and intuitive, because badly designed products or bad technology products can suffer user being intimidated and user completely rejecting them, and that's not a good thing for any of the products. So what user experience design does is makes the product approachable and makes it intuitive that anybody would know where things are very easily. It kind of formulates a grammar for it. Next slide, please. So with that in mind, I'm going to actually hand over to Naman Singh. He's going to walk you through a portfolio of his one case study, which is extensively done an enterprise product. And he'll hand it over back to me so that I can talk a little bit more about user experience design course. Over to you, Naman.
Thank you, Shiva. And thank everybody for listening to me. I'll quickly go through or talk about a redesign project that I did for a healthcare company. So this was a product that was in the industry for around 9 years, and they had some problems. So the brief that I've written, redesigning a 9 years old healthcare product to make it more user-friendly. This is the kind of actual brief that you receive when you go into the industry. And I highlighted this because there's a lot of chaos in the industry or in the outside world. But as designers, we need to understand how to make sense of that chaos. So some of the problems that the platform has, it was cluttered screens. There was a lot of information everywhere. There was a huge wastage of space. There was a lot of scrolling in the interface. There were too many clicks to reach one place to another, and there were just too many tabs, and the navigation was not right. So these were the perceived problems. But the actual problem was that nobody was listening to the users or the people who were actually using the product. It was all guesswork going, and there was not the designs were not thought through, and it was just chaos all around. So to get this, take all of it, we as designers, we made sense of it. So we thought, let's get going, let's get good, and let's get smart. So get going is to solve small problems, and to get good is to understand from the problems that we solve, how can we improve them, and using technology, how can we get smarter. So it was to make sense of all the chaos that the clients or the brand gave us. It was to make the life easier of the users. So it was, how can they be more productive, how can they be more efficient. And it was through the design principles that we used to make the journey, or make the experience more seamless and user friendly. Next slide, please. So to understand, so the first step, or uh, or the uh, or the foundation of design, is to understand what the product is and what the users want. So it is crucial for you to understand how people interact with the technology, and how do they currently interact with other apps, other products, Instagram, Facebook, to name a few. So we did a small offline exercise with them to understand what their brand is and what their product is. We took their product demos. We mapped out the entire product on the walls, uh, just to have a virtual brain on the whiteboard in front of us, just to navigate. So these are some highlights and some pictures of that. Next slide, please. So the first step was to understand the problem, and the next step was to design. So this is actually what design looks. The end outcome is just a byproduct of design. Designing is actually understanding and solving, and it is reiterating. So this is actually how design works, and this is how actually we design, we think. So this is our brains on a whiteboard. Next slide, please. So these were the old screens or the old designs. So as you can see, there is a lot of wasted space, and there's a lot of information going. Your eye cannot stuck. You cannot just focus on one thing. But with the suggestions, with the feedback after talking to the users, considering the requirements from the client, we did a few things, and we came up with the new designs. Next slide, please. So this was the revamp. The screen size, or the real estate is the same. However, we are able to fit in more information, and we are able to see a lot more information in a less cluttered way, and it looks seamless and even better. Next slide, please. Right. So just a few more slides to few more screens to showcase how clean, how minimal, considering my bias towards minimalism, and just to showcase how we worked on this specification and the design system. We created a library so that every screen, every interface, every touch point, if the users goes through, it should look seamless, and it should feel seamless to them. Right. And this is the core or the heart of it. The design should be, like Shiva mentioned, design should be seamless, intuitive, and approachable. And that's what we at least try to do from this project. And with that, thank you so much. It was a short, crisp case study presentation from my side. Thank you.
Thanks, Naman. Thank you, Naman. Let's go to the next slide, Press. Let me talk a little bit over the stuff. So we are actually going into the diploma in UX design course that we are doing. It's 25 weeks, 150 hours of learning. It'll have, like, it's written there, it's about 6 hours of live instructor-led sessions every week, 6 hours of self-managed study. That's how the course is going to be structured. But what we want you to understand is this: like a product like what Naman showed right now is quite complicated if it is not designed. If it's got to be used by users regularly on a daily basis, it needs cutting of clutter. It needs, especially if you're staring at a product like this through the day, it needs cutting of clutter, redesigning in such a way that things are intuitive, things are laid out nicely so that structured and cohesive method of working through your processes happen through this product, right? And that's what the aim of this stuff is. So the important thing, so you might ask that user experience design, learning user experience design, how difficult is it today? It's not difficult today. There are hundreds and hundreds of courses that you can actually see on user experience design of various sizes, right? But unfortunately, a lot of these courses that are given are quite shallow. It is not giving you the kind of stuff that's got to be deep enough. They are predominantly only some knowledge pieces that are given to you. They are more of how-tos than actually deep learning by doing. So the first piece that our course is different, as somebody who's put the course together, I can say that it's about managing knowledge or marrying knowledge and practice together very well. So the deep learning by doing. That's number one. Second is I have been in the industry for 30 odd years, like you heard from Suyash, and a substantial amount of that I have actually spent in the technology companies. Right? So I can actually say it's 24 years of that is in technology companies, right? Starting from like 98, I've been in tech companies. So industry has changed quite a bit. The technology industry, what it was before and how it evolved to actually a set of startups, a set of enterprises that have initiatives, that have products, need you today to hit the ground running. Okay, first of all, they have a talent deficit. There is not enough UX talent to actually work hard on all the projects and all the initiatives that they have. The second is that if at all they do get talent, they don't have all the concepts and skills that is needed, so they've got to train them. But what we are doing in this course is actually training everybody in the concepts and skills that are needed by the industry. So we are actually creating industry-ready people who can hit the ground running. The third thing that I want to kind of talk about is limited cohort of 20 learners in a class. If it goes beyond 20, eventually we'll break it into two, right? So it will be only 20 in a class. The reason being that we want to focus on what each individual is learning and ability to connect with them very well so that their personal issues and methods of learning is taken care of, right? There are multiple types of learners. There are visual learners. There are verbal learners. There are learners who prefer doing more and reading less and so on. So we need to kind of modify this a wee bit for each of those. So 20 seems to be an appropriate number for us to actually offer that kind of customization if needed. And this entire thing happens on a very robust learning management system, which is actually a product that's used by Kingston University and by IIAD, because it's a fantastic, really good learning management system, which is what you will log into. This is where you'll see all the lessons that come up. You will be guided at every part of the lesson by the learning management system, and of course by the mentors and by the teaching assistants who will be available for you. It's important that when you get out of this course, there is a method in which you are evaluated. And for creative and for user experience designers and creative people, the best way to be evaluated is with a strong portfolio. You've got to actually showcase a strong portfolio of relevant projects, and that's what makes you to really go through, actually be noticed and go through the stuff very well. So at the end of this course, you will at least have 5 pieces of projects that are robust, that are good, strong, and contextually correct, that you can showcase as your work to people who are ready to hire you. There's, of course, I spoke about this earlier. Sorry, got to be in the same slide. I spoke about that stuff earlier. But I think we've got to be on the same slide earlier. We can go one slide back, please. We'll have minimum 6 hours of online contact classes per week for sure, which essentially means it's a classroom experience that you will get, and it's not videos you're going to watch. We also have a peer-to-peer learning platform. We believe you will learn as much from teachers as much as you will learn from peers who are the other learners who are working with you, right? So that peer-to-peer learning platform is offered to you by the learning management system, the classroom experience, and also tools that you're going to use other than the classroom experience, where you can message and get immediate feedback. There will be industry experts as mentors and teachers. One of them will be me. There are many more people who are a part of this stuff. There's going to be very key master classes, probably every month from every 2 weeks, I think, from leaders in the industry. And of course, there is going to be a very focused placement method, which I think Azhar will talk about a little later, and a method in which you will get a job at the end of it. Now, let's go to the next slide and let's quickly talk about who will benefit from the course. Like, who have you got to be? I think it is actually for anyone who is looking for a serious career shift. If you do have a penchant for solving problems, if you're looking at your apps, if you're looking at your products and stuff and saying like, this could have been like this is probably a better way of doing it, you probably have a small inkling of what user experience design is. So if you're already a creative person in the creative and visual area, like visualizers and advertising agencies, art directors in advertising agencies, junior architects who are probably working as draftsmen, copywriters, planners, strategists, even graphic designers who have been working on print predominantly, or even working on banners and stuff like that, and industrial designers who have been kind of thinking of a bigger move so that you can actually push your career up. This is a good place to come in. There are also other things that we can talk about. Going to the next slide. So if you're also already a part of a technology product team, like for example, you're a front-end developer, you're a business analyst, you're a project manager, or you're a tech architect or a tech startup founder, you can be a part of this stuff too. You will get to gain quite a bit from this too, right? Next slide, please. Yeah, so I think the key roles, like who will hire you? I think technology startups will hire you. I think technology product and service companies will hire you. I think design agencies will hire you. Technology startups in like fintech or in food tech or in ed tech or e-commerce will hire you a bat of a high eyelid. Technology product and services companies who are like Oracle, Microsoft, or Infosys, or IBM and Wipro are constantly looking for user experience designers. Design agencies like the one who Naman is working for are constantly looking for user experience designers for specific projects, right? So the key roles that you will get in these places are user experience designers or UI designers, which is like a subset, which is like designing the screens themselves, while user experience is designing the entire experience of how you'll move from one place to the other. You can become a researcher, a writer, a UX manager, a UX strategist, and also a product designer, which is a digital product designer, where you can actually look at it as a bigger digital product that can actually help you kind of look at the product as a whole rather than looking at one part of it as a user experience. Like, for example, I guess what Naman showcased you is more about a full product, right? Let's go to the next one, please. So with this, I actually want to hand over back to Suyash so that they can quickly walk you through what the placement holds for you and what is the possibility of actually getting a job once you finish this course. Over to you, Suyash.
Thank you so much for that, Shiva. Up next, I have Azad Mahmood. He's the Senior Executive Placements and Corporate Relations at IIAD. Azad, over to you.
Thanks for the introduction, Suyash. If you can allow me to share my screen, please.
Sure.
Azhar, do you need to share your screen or
no problem? I can definitely take it forward from this.
Yeah, please. I think that will be better.
So a very warm welcome to all the attendees today here. You have heard from industry leader like Shiva and the young professional like Naman. You've heard like what UX is and how exponentially it is growing. So it's been predicted by CNN that there will be an 18% of the annual growth in the UX design from 2020 and 2050. Being in the industry for a good time now, I've seen students like inclining more towards the UX and UI and learning about it, and how the industry is actually looking forward to have all these graduates. Next slide, please. So, yes, top 5. So this skill UX has been listed like on top 5 by LinkedIn itself in 2022. Next slide, please. Yes, 9 lakh average salary for a UX design fresher that we are looking at. There's a huge surge that we have seen recently in terms of the salary packages with different kinds of industry here at IIAD itself. Next slide, please. 36,000 plus job openings for UX in India. We were just having a quick look on LinkedIn, Naukri, and Glassdoor. What is actually happening there? I'll ask to move to the next slide. You can look, we have taken this few hours back where we have just put UX design in India, how many jobs are there actually in the market. So there are 36,000 plus jobs are there, and for a fresher, you can see the 10K jobs are already there. With Naukri, next slide, please. Yes, you can see from 0 to 3 or 0 to almost or what we can say a fresher to a director level. There's a lot of jobs in the market for a UX design. Next slide, please. Yes, so this is what I was actually talking about, how the salary is there from 3 lakhs or 5 lakhs to a crore itself. Looking at the Naukri's portal. With Glassdoor, one of the very important for any of the employees, this portal helps you to understand actually what is out there in the market. So according to the Glassdoor, there is a UX designer salary is around 8 lakh as an average package. Next slide, please. Yes, we have within few years we have seen the surge, and this is the salary range that we have seen and placed our student at IIAD. And as Shiva said, the strong portfolio with industry led program, and obviously the master classes will help you to go through it. Next slide, please. Yes, so these are the different companies that students have been placed with, where you can see the consulting, the strong and very big consulting firms like Gartner, IBM, and Cognizant hired our student. Design agencies like Use Design, Quoratech, and Protivity hired our student. Someone like Yatra, who is into tour and tourism. Also a healthcare company, Legato, or a gamification company called So Strong. So there is a lot of diversification that you see for a UX designer. There's a lot of demand for a UX designer. Everyone wants it. Next, please. These are a few of our students who have been placed, where you can see the names of the companies and where they have been placed. Thank you. Over to you, Suresh.
Well, having seen that, I'm also thinking of switching my career to UX. And for anybody else who's thinking the same, at And Academy, we have a 25 weeks industry integrated diploma course on UX design, through which we make you an in-demand UX designer. Uh, all right. So for the next session, I have Prachi helping me out, and we'll go over to the Q&A. If anybody has any questions that they would want to ask Shiva or any one of us, please go ahead and put it in the chat.
Actually, put it in the Q&A. You will see a chat at the bottom. You will also see a Q&A at the bottom. Right. If you actually put it in Q&A, we can manage it very well in the sense that I can actually mark something as answered offline, and things like that. So please put it in Q&A so that it will be useful for us to track. And I'll make sure that we answer at least 90% of it.
All of them will answer.
All of them. Okay.
So thank you, Naman and Shiva. I'll start with a conversation at my end is itself. Naman, I thought that it was great that you showed this project and not a typical UI project, which is what people associate with UX. Generally, I've been, for those of you who do not know me, I am part of the academic team at AND, and right now I'm looking at a lot of candidates who want to be students at and I've also worked with I've been with IIAD for the last 6 years, and so Naman was one of my students. So it's great to share a professional screen space with your student. A lot of times I get these portfolios sent to me saying that I've learned UX, or I do, or I'm a self-taught UX designer, and this is my portfolio. Should I still join an AND Academy course or not? And Shiva and Naman, all I see are those Figma screens. They all look the same. Some with a dominance of blue color, some with a dominance of green color. There is no variety even in the color palette, if that's what it is. And so it may be visually boring to see those slides of Naman, but that is actually a lot of real UX that happens, uh, you know. And I thought, Naman, that was quite interesting the way you said that that's on the wall or on the whiteboard, that's our brain. I think it's also not just our brain, it's also the user's brain and mind mapped onto the, so it's like a projection of all of that over there. My question to you, Naman, is that when you stepped into the industry, you know uh, and you were confronted with a project like this, where you had a boring looking white screen to work on with just a blue this thing, and a lot of data actually is what you were handling. Yeah, so this project, if I understand it correctly, was a lot of somebody dealing with a lot of data.
Right.
What did it do to you, to your aspirations as a designer, that oh, ये करना पड़ेगा, मैंने तो कुछ और करना था लाइफ में? Did that happen? What was that moment like for you, Naman?
So actually, when this happened, it did not happen the way you mentioned, but but probably it was quite later in my career. So I realized that design. Please don't get me wrong. Design is a very thankless field. Nobody ever thanked the creator of WhatsApp or the creator of, let's say, Instagram. Nobody actually thanked them to, oh, thank you so much for creating this tool or making this happen or designing this product. So I think that is so I was that is something that was different in this product. A lot of people thanked me because it actually, and that made me realize that the impact that I can do without actually making it colorful, poppy, and I think that's the impact that it created. That it is about the simplicity and it's how it works, not how it feels, not how it feels.
I think it feels also. It feels good when it's almost like that ratty T-shirt that I always want to wear. It doesn't look good, but it feels good because it's so comfortable.
Comfort.
And that's
Yeah.
how products have to be. And I'll reflect on this whole idea of design being a thankless job. I always worry about design as being too easy. My pain point these days is everybody has an opinion about design, and everybody thinks that they can design and give feedback to a designer, that this is how it has to be done. Shiva, what did you think of the project that was being shared by Naman? I'm just waiting for a couple of more questions, and we're going to go to them.
I think
Go ahead.
I think that is a little bit of shake up to reality. You can get multiple types of products. I think very, very simple, right? Like there are technology. What does technology product do? Technology products try to save money or save time and effort. That's all it does. For businesses, for people, that's what it does, right? It actually helps you either save money or save time or both. right? Save time and effort both. So when businesses are trying to do that in a big way, there are a set of tasks that are lined up one after the other, and you can actually go doing this task from one to the other. And how do you lead people from doing those tasks one next to the other? So the goal is achieved, quote unquote, so that you can reach your goal faster and you can, effort is less so that you make more money out. That's broadly what the story is. And actually, if you look at it and apply this thought to businesses, or if you apply this thought to any product that you and I use, like Uber, like Ola, like what we use, like Make My Trip to book our tickets, it's exactly the same. So you will get, and also one more thing is content, a heavy website. When you're actually searching for a specific information, you go through the same kind of process to reach the information better, right? Like, so whether you are searching for it in Wikipedia, YouTube, or Times of India website, or a Guardian UK website, it's the same process. And the idea is that some of them tend to be way more expressive because they are brands that are expressive and they are talking towards the end consumers. Right? Some of them tend to be simple, clean, easier to access and do because, like I said earlier, right through the day, you're sitting in a business or an enterprise, you're doing it all day. So it's got to be easy on the eye, easier to do. The project that Naman showed was one of the projects where it had to be easy on the eye, easier to do, less fatigue happens when you actually use it. So the considerations are not necessarily just expressive and stylistic. Considerations are more about actually making it more usable, if I can use the word. I think that's what the deal is.
And I think, Shiva, to understand when style is important and when it is not important. I don't want the audience to think that we are rejecting visual style. In certain products, in certain experiences, if that is what is required, the designer will work on it. But in a certain product, when that may not be the focus of it, the designer would have the wisdom to focus on what needs to be done. And on that...
Yeah, actually, sorry to interject. Actually, I want to Kushwant has been asking a bunch of questions about this, right? So Kushwant, let me actually use Prachi's question to answer yours too, in one sense, right? So if I actually look at it, there are multiple layers to actually creating a product, right? Or creating a bunch of screens. You think that it's a screen that comes in front of you, but truly it is not. Like I'll try and understand. I'll try and answer one more question as it come up, but it is like multiple layers that kind of one above the other. So you actually first define the structure of how do you move. It's like doing a house, right? It's like creating a house. You know that there are 5 things that has got to be there in a house. You need a living room, you need a bedroom, you need a toilet, you need a kitchen, and you need a porch to park your car, probably. Those 5 things, you should actually have a method in which you lay them out in a certain way. And there should be ability to access each one of it from other places, and the ability to kind of look at it as a whole and say that's a beautiful house. So I can build a dabba and put a bunch of dabbas in it and still cut out some holes in it, and that makes a house. But I think if I am expressive enough, I can actually think about how do I show what I am good at, or how does the architect show what she is good at, and create a house that is expressive. And both are needed. So color, type, forms that are used are things that are used to actually create that expression well. In some cases, more consumer-oriented apps tend to use the brand heavier in front. So they will tend to use more color, more type, more. So how do you actually define these visuals? These visual elements of visual design are born out of the brand itself. Most often it is about questioning how serious do you want it. There is a entire set of things that we'll walk you through if you're a part of the course, but it's like how serious do you want it to be? How frivolous do you want the ad to be? How fun and playful do you want the app to be or the website to be? These are actually the questions that you answer through using a certain color palette, certain set of typography, and so on and so forth. I can get into details. I don't want to teach here, but this is broadly what the stuff is. Going to one more question by anonymous attendee. I think I will also say these elements of visual design that comes actually creates a screen, right? A set of screens once you put together as a pack of stuff where you say, I click on this and I go to this screen, I click on this, I go to this screen, click on this, I actually check out and get out of the stuff. That is the user experience. That's called user experience. Looking at a screen and saying the top should be navigation, right should be something else, the main area should come like this, the product should be listed like this, the colors, the type palette, and the prioritization of stuff on the screen is actually called UI. So that's the difference. UI is a subset of UX. User interface design, it's very difficult to kind of draw a line and say, my UI ends here. It's very tricky to do that. But largely saying that UX encompasses a whole bunch of UIs stacked together to create a flow, which we call as a user task flow, which you can go from one screen to the other. Naman, you want to add something?
No, I think you perfectly framed it. So I think, yes, there's so a lot of things in design, if I may take a philosophical approach, sometimes it comes to you and sometimes it is largely driven by the kind of people who are going to use the product. And it is largely defined or described, or how it is largely led by the product and the brand, and how we want the people to perceive the brand. So
True.
yes,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. How do you want the users to perceive the product or the brand? Is something that is important for us to actually define what the visuals are going to be.
In fact, Shiva, if I may add to it, I think sometimes we also tend to simplify the understanding of visual design, and we equate it to beauty and something looking pretty or attractive. Actually, even somewhere attraction needs to be redefined, because if something is efficient and simple to use, it becomes attractive. So so if it is the visual design is an important part, because it is through the visual design you are giving cues and making it intuitive for people to use the app. You're making it easy for them to read what is there. So the visual design also has a whole functional role to it, and the functional role of a product is deeply connected to the emotional response of a user. I may sit with a damn pretty looking device or app, but if I struggle to work on it, I won't stay with it for too long. So that's where it is. Shiva, would you like to just quickly, I know we've spoken a little bit about it, but there are several questions around the difference between UI and UX. Would you
I just said that, I can clearly state it again. UI is designing a page or a screen, one screen. How do you actually define that screen is largely a UI. UX defines the flow and the method in which you interact with the entire product. It's not that screen alone. That's the simplistic way of saying what a UX and a UI is. User experience involves the entire experience of you going through. How did the app open? How did the website load up? What do you see first? And what did you click on to go where? How do you actually create something that is worthwhile, that actually leads people to the kind of places that you want to be led? That's what user experience design is all about. UI is about actually in a page, creating hierarchy, balance, contrast through using color, typography, and elements of user interface like drop downs, fields, radio buttons, and those kind of things. That is UI. So UI is a subset. UI actually is inside UX. So there are a lot of people asking, will you teach UI? Of course we will. It's very difficult to not teach UI and teach user experience design. User experience is a larger set under which UI lies.
But I just wanted to, at this point, I think Sonali also has that question. and you've touched on it. And there was somebody else who said that I just want to be a UI designer. And for them, see, you can't be a UX designer without understanding and knowing UI, and
That's
you
correct.
can't be a UI designer without understanding UX. You may later
That's correct too.
you
That's
can't
correct too.
you can't be just a visual designer without understanding the concepts and principles of user experience. Your
right.
user experience or strategy design person will shove you out of the team because you'll be just too difficult to work with. But I have this little solution for such candidates. They can opt for the PG diploma course, in which the first term focuses on visual design. So it's the fundamentals of graphic design, which is what forms the base for UI, a more detailed visual design. Actually, I don't want to call it only UI, and then proceed to UX. So what happens is that you graduate with a more holistic understanding of, and a well grounded understanding of both UI UX, because you have picked up the fundamentals of visual design as well as design thinking, and then you have added layers of user experience on it. So for such candidates, that's the solution. Shiva,
Yeah.
anything
So
to add?
yeah, actually, Sonali's question of actually why is it called only UX design? Because it's a subset. That's why we didn't call it. Like for example, if you go to the buffet, we will say it is a buffet. We don't say the buffet also has pulao, dal. Of course it does. So it is like that. User experience is like UI is a subset. Kevin has been asking some interesting questions. Let me answer two questions for Kevin. I lost the first question. What is the first question you'd asked?
I'll read it out. It's an interesting. He said that will in future, 15 years from now,
Yeah, good.
will apps like Canva replace UX design?
Let me actually answer it in a simple way, Kevin. Like right now, if you actually look at the value chain of where the user experience design operates, to kind of make the concept of value chain simple, let me actually tell you what it is, right? The lowest possible thing that you can work on and the most complex project that you can work on. If you actually look at that entire thread, the lowest possible thing that a user experience in the pure sense can work on is content-based small website. It could be a personal site that you do for yourself. It could be a website for a small boutique or a design thing that you kind of start doing and things like that. And actually, it goes further onto defining task flows, content maps, large products, complicated stuff like what Naman showed, or what we've actually gone through. Like, for example, a Guardian.uk or a Times of India, their own website, or a Economic Times website, or a complicated thing like Uber or Ola, for example, can never ever be replaced by, can never be done by Canva, ever. The reason being there are two things to it. One is designing it. Okay, no, let's start before designing. One is understanding people who are going to use it, feeling the empathy. I don't think Canva does that very well anyway, right? Feeling the empathy for those people who are going to be using it, and then actually designing it in such a way it is kind of personalized, customized, and well put together for the experience that she, the user, might be demanding, right? That can never ever be replaced. However, for the lowest possible things that you do, which is like the basic website that you can put together. Oh yeah, there are multiple templates available outside, which are like $20 to $50 a pop. You can kind of fix it. But that's not the area that you're looking at right now in this course. We are looking at areas that are up the value chain. If you go to work in a larger enterprise, you go to work in a startup. You're not going to sell by actually doing this stuff. You're going to sell by doing complicated products.
So, I'm just going to pick up maybe a couple of other questions where a lot of people say that UX is a never-ending learning platform. So how IIAD Academy helps us to become a lifelong learner? Prabhat, that's an excellent question. And I think one can replace UX with anything. every discipline is an ever evolving, never ending this thing. And you've hit the nail. The job of an educational institution is to make lifelong learners out of any of their students. Because if I don't know if you joined us right at the beginning, I was discussing with Shiva today. He's an UX expert. When he studied, the term UX did not exist. It existed in a different way. So how does And Academy help us to become a lifelong learner? Simple answer to that is that the only way you can become a lifelong learner is if you nurture curiosity, if you pick up tools that help you uh, collect data, information, and convert that into knowledge. And the way to do it is through active learning. So you can't become a lifelong learner by listening and watching and from other people's experiences. You can become a lifelong learner when you learn by doing and by reflecting on what you have done, right? And that is exactly the academic framework of And Academy. That's why this course could not have been a 1 month course. That's why this course could not have been a pre-recorded course. That's why this course could not have been taught by one individual, and could not have been a cut and paste, because then you don't become a lifelong learner. Because you need to, and no course, Naman went through a 4-year course. He can add another 2 years to it in his masters and another 5 years in his PhD. But even after that, he will continue to learn. He will have to, if he wants to stay relevant in the industry, you know.
Yeah,
So
tell me about it. I'm from a realm of print. I saw computer in my fourth year of design school. That's when I saw a computer. Forget anything else. So using it, and like, it's been a lifelong learning. Yes, yeah, absolutely. You're right. I'm going to take Kevin's next question now,
yes,
which is
please.
quite nice. What are the traits that make one stand out from other UI UX designers? I think it's kind of, I'm falling back on the older answer that I gave. Really, right now, everybody who's designing the lower value chain pieces, like right from a banner, a single banner, to like a very basic website which is theme based, are calling themselves user experience designers. You got to learn to go up the value chain. That doesn't mean that you got to actually do one of each, right? But actually, the process of doing it is something which is kind of little abstract and beautiful. If you understand that, ability to do any problem that's put in front of you is quite easy, right? And that's what will kind of set you apart from any other user experience designer, really. The course, incidentally, is designed to actually do that. It's a deep learning course, like I said. It's a deep learning by doing course. So all the projects that you will do are defined with a certain amount of complexity that matches with what the industry demands. So if the simple answer is that you try and do this course, that will differentiate you from other user experience designers pretty easily.
Shiva, I'd like to add to that, in a slightly different way, that what are the traits that make one stand out from other UI UX? Or I think, how do you even know whether you are made for UX, or UX is made for you? One of the things that I often spot in students very early is when they like to map their thinking, when they enjoy the thinking process of it, and when I find them deeply interested in people. You have to be innately interested in people. I think that's something that nobody can teach. You have to be interested in people. We can teach you tools through which you can, I don't like the word, but hack into their thinking. But you have to be interested in people, and you have to be interested in thinking. And like Naman said right at the beginning, chaos should excite you, because then there is possibility to open, or bring order to the chaos. So when I see a student do these things, I I keep quiet, but I wait for them to show their interest in UX. But I know that that's the seed of it. So that's, and if you can just amplify that, you will stand out as a UX designer, I think. Shiva, would you take somebody like that into your team?
Yeah, that's kind of simplified, but I think there is like a way more precise method of doing this stuff, right? Like my thing is very, very simple. If you can actually take a simple task that you do every day morning, and if you can explain that to somebody else, you can be a user experience designer. If you can actually take, how do you make chai when you get up, and how do you serve it to somebody? You actually explain that to me like almost like a task flow, like a process, very beautifully, because that's the exercise we give to actually judge if somebody can potentially put a task flow together. And if you can do that, you can potentially be a user experience designer.
Yeah. In fact, that's what we asked our candidates to also do, Shiva, when they apply.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Yeah. Kushwant is asking for free advice. That I'm not giving him.
But I'm wondering if Naman wants to, because I know there can be an interesting twist to this question. Naman, can you give some tips to improve UX design? Are there tips to improve UX design?
Okay, again, a very philosophical approach to this. I think somebody famous or rich said that the only way to learn is to live. And I think the only way you can improve, I don't think there are tips. I mean, if you want to, there's a 80-20 rule, and if the 80%, if you get the 20% right in the screen, which is your typography, your colors, and your spacing, your 80% work is done. So I think if that's the tip, that's the kind of tip you're looking for, that's it. But I don't think there's a easy way to learn.
I was actually.
But I actually go with what Naman said before. This is Stephen King.
Yes.
Stephen King said, like, the only way to write well is to write. Yes. So that's the thing. Just get doing it. Like, do hundreds of it. Actually, you'll figure it out as you go.
Actually, Naman, the answer I was hoping, and you did give it, is that there can't be any tips. If something could be learned through tips, it would not become a profession. True. The fact that something is a profession, it requires deep training. So, Shiva, you want to?
Yeah, let me actually take the Ritesh's course, which is in what terms is this course best from Google UI UX. I don't want to like focus on Google UI UX specifically, but courses out there, two things. Predominantly, it's pre-recorded, the courses are. So they are not, like, they can't tweak the courses in any possible way to your questions and actually make the stuff work for you, right? That's number one. Number two is that most of the people, it's slightly more wider and generic in Google, and they actually don't have projects that you can actually do, verify, show to somebody, get a validation done by them. We actually do reviews every week, which means like every project, every piece that you do, Fridays are review days where we'll sit and probably say what is good, what can be made better, how can this actually fit in your portfolio well. So that it's a huge difference from Google or any other course. I wouldn't even call out the Google course or Udemy. You talk about any user experience course, it's different. So if you actually search for this one term that I'm going to say, it is called cohort-based courses, which is basically how groups of people learn together in a class experience to actually get better at what they have to do, is what we have focused on. We have actually designed a cohort-based course that aligns with what the industry wants and what the people, where the people who are learning should go as a progress, right? So that pretty much is the difference.
So somebody's asked this question twice. I haven't answered my own opinion about it, but Shiva, interested to listen to yours. Is UI the right part of the brain and UX?
No. Oh, first of all, that entire right and left is being dissed a lot. Like the one side being logical and the other side being creative. Like, I think there's a lot of conversations about it where they are dissing both. But let me actually go to the UI and UX part. It's surely not that, right? It's surely not that. designing the experience can be as creative as it is logical, and designing the screen can be as creative as it is logical. So please don't consider anything as one is logical and the other one is creative, rational and creative. Not at all. Both are equal. That's why it is important for us to understand this is a special thing that you will gain, because you will be able to at the same time know how to use the rational side and the law. I'm not, mind you, I'm not saying left and right, okay, but the rational part and the creative part of your brain to achieve things. And user experience demands that very heavily, both of them.
So if Prabhat or whoever asked that question, if you just go and see, there is a list of 21 skills that are in demand, going to be in demand in 21st century, right? And out of those, 3 are, in fact, let me say 4 of them are creative thinking, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. And all 4 need to come together for design. And
the interesting segue from that is that those 4 are the only ones that AI and ML can't do it by itself. So going back to the question of actually, will Canva take over and throw you out of your job? It won't. It can't. Because doing creativity, wide enough, doing collaboration, actually being empathetic to another person and being able to have a conversation and derive something out of it, it's not going to be very easy for a machine to do that. At least not for the next, 50 years that I can see, right? So yeah.
Shiva, this question is coming to me many times, and I'm now tempted to share something very interesting. When I was in school in my 11th and 12th, I was a computer programmer, and I used to go for these programming competitions. And I very categorically remember in one of the competitions, there was an impromptu round in which we had to debate. And this is mid 90s, 94, 95, when I was in that, 11th and 12th. And one of the questions in 94, 95 was that when AI was just being spoken about, that since AI is coming up, do you think humans will be replaced by AI? And my 15, 16-year-old who had no sense at that time I was the only one who debated against it in a whole this thing. And I said that to make AI, you will always need a human behind, even to make a good AI. And when the AI fails, you will blame not AI, but the human who created that AI. And it will never happen. And today you've said that, this whole conversation is coming back to me like every second day, because there's so much of this conversation about metaverse, artificial intelligence, and all of that. And I don't think that any amount of technology or artificial intelligence will ever be able to replace human mind, because mind is not just logical. Mind is logic and emotion, the affective domain and the cognitive domain, and all of it comes together. Last to answer. Yes.
Sorry. Let me actually take these two, which is on screen right now. There's one which actually is talking about UX design. Does it require to be good at research? Okay, now there is, interestingly, in the industry, it is nicely siloed out. There are people who have been people who have been trained in user experience design have actually chosen to do only user experience research, right? Or they actually do the whole 9 yards. But what you should know surely is to, one, research methodology, right? And we'll teach you that. We'll talk about how to observe, immerse, participate, to actually get some insights that you can learn so that you can design for the user that you're designing for. And the second thing that you will learn is to actually take those insights and convert them into a product, or use the insights to design the product or the user experience that you are designing. Those two things are extremely important. I think the second is more important than one, but one, you got to understand the methodology so that you can demand what you want to demand of researchers, even if you're not doing the research by yourself. But I know a lot of people who have actually completely moved to research, right? Prabhat, I didn't understand the question that you have put up, which is about the theoretical part of Figma. But how important is the true tool at the end of the day? I can actually tell you. You can have as much thinking as you want. You can be conceptually fantastic. The only way to express is actually putting it together on paper as a prototype or using a tool to building a prototype together. So Figma has become an industry standard. We are actually going to have, like in the 25 weeks, if you see, the every fourth week is actually tools and technology week where you will get to learn tools and you will also get to learn the kind of technologies that you will be working for. Going back to the question that came in earlier, do you need to know coding? No, you don't need to know coding, but you need to actually get the working knowledge of how an e-commerce site works to actually design that site well. How a content management system works to actually design that content management website well, right? Like, so given that learning Figma, learning XD, learning the Adobe Creative Suite will be important.
But at the same time, just learning Figma will not make you a.
Sure, true that, absolutely.
So it's both ways.
I had a quick question, Shiva, and since I have you here,
Sure.
I've been going through a lot of courses on Udemy, Coursera, YouTube, and stuff, and I've observed that they all talk about principles of UX design.
Yeah.
And the thing that I took away from those courses was like if you understand the principles, like you need to place this here, the guidelines and the rules, you become a designer, a UX designer. Is that the right
I
approach towards it?
I wish it was that easy. I wish it was like instant coffee. Like take a little bit of Nescafe, mix it in milk, and drink it, and you're done. It's not. Unfortunately, it is not like that. I think so. Design. I'm not talking about user experience design. Any design is about actually understanding user, the context or the environment that the user is in, and creating a product or anything that they will interact with so that they can actually make, like I said, reduce the effort, reduce time, and be efficient about what they're doing, right? That's broadly what the story is. That cannot be templatized because you will never have a context that is the same for every user. You will never have the user who's the same. I mean, one day I am designing a banking application which is in vernacular languages, which includes Devanagari, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam kind of stuff, which is for probably a small finance bank, right? Like one day I'm doing that. The other day I am actually doing a dating app for the metros, right? Like for much younger. So the crowd is so very different. This is probably for a tier 2 and a rural audience, where we've got to actually talk a lot more about the technology literacy. What have they used before? They're used to WhatsApp kind of stuff. So what can we create that is similar to what they have used before? But the dating app is created for youngsters who are actually like zooming in and out of their apps, and they are so quick with what they do. So that context and that environment is very, very different. So all these things of principles and templates that you buy and actually some guidelines and basic, while there are best practices, that cannot be the rules, right? So that's short and sweet. Most of the stuff courses are actually, you're so very right in saying that they are actually giving you those kind of steps, which is band-aid, really. It pains a lot when you pull it off, but it is band-aid. It is a band-aid fix.
And may not always cure the disease.
Surely not. It just covers it.
It just covers it. And in fact, I think they're wrongly termed as principles. Principles.
They should be more like best practices.
No, there are principles actually, Prachi.
Not principles,
No, there are principles. They are using principles, but then see, principles is the starting point. If principles is not converted into a practice, then it is pointless. Like you can learn the principle, but how do I actually make it as a practice and do it again and again? and how do I actually tweak it for each of the places? So is the content correct? The content is correct, but it's just that it's not scalable for every situation that you're going to be in. That's the problem.
I also have a quick question for Azhar since I have him here. Azhar, are you still there?
He is visible. Azhar,
Okay. Yeah.
You're on mute, Azhar.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
trying to talk.
I'm there. I'm there.
Yeah.
It's just
Um,
that I'm having some issues with the video. Yeah.
so Azhar is basically the person who's in charge of placing all the students at IIAD. And I just quickly wanted to ask you, Azhar, like, how difficult or what kind of a demand is there? I mean, we went through the presentation, it was quite clear. But when you are actually getting students placed, what is it that hiring managers are looking at?
Yeah, so majorly, currently what we have seen post-COVID, right? That a lot of hiring managers that are looking for UX designer, right? Whether it's, I told you, I also mentioned this in the PPT that so there is a diversification of the industry that are looking for the UX design because actually there is a demand, right? And I'll tell you this that we have placed almost everyone in the batch this year, the graduating in year, and still we are getting the demand, right? There is a need for that. So you can understand that how the UX design is actually growing day by day, and everyone, I told you, everyone is looking for a UI and UX designer.
So is the IID tag, is what is getting the students placed?
Yes, yes, it is, and especially as I mentioned earlier as well, and that industry-led program wherein you are getting taught by the industry directly, also where you are being mentored by the industry leaders, right, through the master classes, and especially your portfolio building, which Shiva has mentioned in a very crisp manner that you require that kind of portfolio to go through it, whether it's an IBM, Infosys, or a design firm for that matter, right? You require a very strong portfolio, wherein even and has these modules, right? Wherein the portfolio building, the career building program is already there.
Right. Thank you so much, Azhar.
Thank you.
okay. So Yash, I think that's the last questions that we've already
Yes.
heard, and we are well 15 minutes over our time of the webinar as well. So maybe.
All right. So I think let's call it a night. Thank you everybody for joining in, and we wish you a pleasant evening. Keep learning, keep growing, and remember, design is the future. Good night.